In the 2000s, Dropbox was everywhere. It was the cloud solution before Google Drive, OneDrive, and pretty much anything else. It was the default. But now, no one uses it. Numbers are stalling, and the company just did something that signals the death of Dropbox. If Dropbox was first, why aren't they dominating like Google? Is Dropbox about to die? The late 2000s were a mess for anyone working with digital files. Everyone's workflow was pure chaos. You had physical USB drives or external hard drives, which if you unplugged the wrong way, would get lost or corrupted. In a box somewhere, I have multiple external hard drives that I no longer use. Plus, you had to email massive attachments just to share a document. The simple act of moving a file from your desktop to your laptop was a multi-step nightmare, and the technology was there, but the seamless experience was missing. This created a massive, unspoken need for a new way to handle digital storage. A new business model was begging to be created. Enter Dropbox. Instead of asking users to constantly buy expensive new physical hard drives, what if a company could offer storage to them as a simple, affordable service? By owning vast amounts of storage, the company could benefit from economies of scale, where costs get spread over more servers and storage space. The more you own, the cheaper each gigabyte. Thus, Dropbox was born, a mass cloud storage solution for consumers. It immediately solved the chaos problem. All your files were in one place and organized, and it was platform agnostic. It worked identically whether you were on a Mac or a Windows PC or later your phone. This is the standard today, but in 2007, this was unheard of. Dropbox was set up to disrupt the whole industry, and then they showed their first demo.
Okay, my name's Drew, and I'll be showing you a quick tour of Dropbox, which is a new way to store and share files online.
This seems like a normal conference demo, but signups for Dropbox exploded. Soon, Dropbox wasn't just a product, but the default expectation for cloud storage. By 2013, Dropbox was worth $4 billion. Everything was going great. The company was defining the cloud. But in the 2010s, the first signs of trouble began to appear. Other tech giants had noticed the trend and decided to enter the race. In 2011, Apple announced iCloud. But Apple didn't position iCloud as a separate app you had to download. They made cloud storage a built-in default expectation. It was tied directly to iOS and Mac devices, and they included free storage. It was part of the ecosystem, and it was free, at least the first 5 gigabytes. This changed everything. Then it got worse because Google jumped in with Google Drive. To make it even worse, they immediately offered users a massive 15 gigabytes of free storage shared across Drive, Gmail, and Photos. Microsoft followed suit, positioning OneDrive as a core feature of Microsoft 365 plans, also with free tiers. Alternatives to Dropbox began to appear everywhere. Dropbox's core feature was no longer unique, and that viral adoption began to stagnate. Dropbox saw the writing on the wall. They were still growing, but that would stop pretty soon. The market was saturating. The easy growth phase was completely over. They were a smaller player in a space dominated by trillion-dollar platforms. If they wanted to survive, they needed to evolve. But how? Let's take a step back. We have to understand the fundamental reason why Dropbox ended up in this position. The simple truth is that online storage quickly became a commodity. There was very little to differentiate one cloud storage provider from another beyond price, like oil or sugar or rice. Sure, there are minor differences in security, performance, or integration into other systems, but those were benefiting Dropbox's competitors. Not to mention, the massive tech giants could offer the same thing for far cheaper than Dropbox ever could while still making money. The entire game shifted to whoever could house the most data and achieve the best economies of scale. However, there was a critical difference. Unlike Dropbox, the big tech giants like Microsoft and Google aren't even trying to make money from storage itself. They can sell it cheaper because they aren't selling storage at all. Storage is a loss leader for them. A loss leader is a product companies will price cheap and either make very little money on or none at all, but it gets them in the door and that's the goal. Google will lure you in with the free 15 gigabytes and gradually convince you to sign up to a plan. For example, their current Gemini plan, which offers, frankly, a stupid amount of storage space. In the Microsoft 365 subscription, you get 1 terabyte of storage, but as a small part of a larger expensive plan. Storage is a small part of a bigger money-making machine, and this is Dropbox's problem. They had no such cross-subsidy. Storage was their product, whereas for their competitors, storage is just a footnote. Dropbox even admitted this to their investors. Some of these competitors have inherent advantages developing products and services that more tightly integrate with their software and hardware platforms or those of their business partners. Dropbox had no choice but to pivot. They had to offer something else because they simply couldn't compete on price with companies that offered storage for basically free. They needed to evolve beyond simple file synchronization. So Dropbox introduced Dropbox Paper around 2015 as a collaborative document editor. They hoped it would be an alternative to Google Docs or Office 365, and initially, Paper showed real promise. It was sleek and had less friction than Google Docs for team writing. But there was a problem. Insiders say the founders failed to see the potential of Paper and didn't invest aggressively in it. Dropbox positioned Paper as a simple note-taking tool like Evernote instead of a true productivity suite competitor. They missed the chance to turn it into something like Notion, Docs, Office, or a core workplace platform. Paper's adoption never came close to the scale of their original storage product. To be clear, there was a demand for a clean, fast, and reliable document editor. But other platforms like Notion and Obsidian jumped on this and added modern features that left Paper looking irrelevant. So Dropbox tried another response: buy workflow, not storage. They acquired HelloSign for $230 million to move into document workflows and e-signatures. A smart move. If storage is a commodity, sell the services that happen around the files. They also acquired the email client Mailbox in 2013 for $100 million and the photo management app Carousel in 2014. These had a lot of users and some real potential for a massive Dropbox ecosystem, but both of these services were later shut down entirely, frustrating the users who had actually grown to love those services. Dropbox was trying to build an ecosystem, but consistently failed. Why? Dropbox Paper, HelloSign, Showcase, and other integrations never achieved the ubiquity of Google's G Suite or Microsoft 365. These platforms have horizontal integration. Apps connect and synergize with each other easily. Dropbox tried to expand horizontally, but didn't commit to a giant ecosystem. They couldn't convince users to adopt Dropbox as their all-in-one work hub because it wasn't well integrated. Many simply kept using Dropbox for file sync while using Google or Microsoft for everything else, and slowly they also used either of those for storage too. They failed to achieve the horizontal integration of their competitors, and this was because of a much bigger problem, a mistake Dropbox made which would cost them dearly. Over the past 8 years, we've posted 1,100 videos, yet we still haven't crossed 1 million subscribers. We are close though, and I believe 2026 is the year, and if you subscribe right now, we can actually make that a reality. Dropbox was in the consumer space, but they were facing a choice: go consumer or go enterprise. Their competitors were making the bulk of their revenue from selling business to business. While some companies will use a mix of independent tools, many will opt for an ecosystem where everything is integrated, especially the bigger companies. Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Teams, Outlook, all one ecosystem designed for businesses, schools, or government agencies. Dropbox, however, despite spending millions on acquisitions and new ventures, was hesitant to pivot fully to enterprise. Why? Turns out there was another competitor to Dropbox, simply called Box. If you've never heard of this brand, I don't blame you. This was another file-sharing competitor, Box, but it was doubling down on enterprise features and deep integrations. They were going all in on it, and soon enough, 95% of Box's revenue was from enterprise. But Dropbox was hesitant. Dropbox's team did not go the enterprise way because they did not want to become Box. They were first and foremost a consumer product, and leaning into enterprise would mean going all in, You needed big, expensive sales teams. Sales cycles would change to 6-month-long cycles or sometimes even longer. You had to design custom functions for each big client. The focus went away from a clean, unified UX to granular fixes, permissions, complex admin consoles. They didn't think they could provide a good user experience if they focused on enterprise. It's a fair choice to focus on consumer, but Dropbox dragged its feet and went with neither. No enterprise solutions, yet a poorly created horizontal ecosystem. In hindsight, this was a massive strategic miss. While Dropbox stayed consumer-centric, Microsoft and Google swept up corporate clients with their full, deeply integrated productivity suites. So, is Dropbox dying now? Well, let's look at the numbers. From 2020 to 2024, Dropbox's annual revenue inched up from about $2 billion to $2.5 billion. That's only about 4.5% yearly growth, but they are still growing, right? Well, not exactly. They grew by squeezing more money out of customers they already had. For 3 years straight, the number of paying users stayed absolutely flat, stuck between 17 and 18 million people. Paying users had completely flatlined by 2023, and this is a really bad sign because it shows us that Dropbox is experiencing virtually zero growth, and they know it. Now, Dropbox is moving into what is known as a harvest strategy, and this might be the biggest sign of their inevitable death. Instead of investing in bold new products or taking big swings, they're buying back their own stock. Since 2020, they've spent nearly $4 billion on share repurchases. In late 2024 alone, they borrowed $2 billion and went into debt just to buy back more shares. Why? Well, they boost earnings per share, which looks good on paper. Sometimes a company does this if they're confident about growth, but not Dropbox. This move sends a clear message. They don't see better places to invest this money. They don't see big growth opportunities ahead, so they are returning money to investors. Dropbox's leadership has essentially admitted their market is tapped out. The growth phase is over. So instead of chasing expansion, they're returning cash to shareholders and essentially shrinking the company. This is a harvest strategy. You stop planting seeds for the future, you stop betting on growth. Instead, you squeeze every last drop of profit from what you've already built while it lasts. Dropbox isn't trying to become the next big thing anymore. They have paying users, and they're just trying to stay profitable while the market slowly moves on. In business, there are only two ways to win: to be the cheapest or to be different. Dropbox couldn't be the cheapest. I mean, how could they? They were competing against trillion-dollar giants giving storage away for free. So they had to be different. They had to offer something unique, but they fumbled the paper, they missed the enterprise market, and they hesitated on new markets when they should have gone all in. Dropbox is still alive, still profitable even. Is it a bad service? I don't think so. But it's one the market isn't welcoming towards, and now they're just surviving. They're a mature company stuck in a world that demands explosive growth, a world that's already moved on from Dropbox. At least Dropbox didn't get caught up with the whole AI hype, which many companies are now paying for big time. Check out this video to learn more, but until then, I'm Hari, and I'll see you guys on the next one.